And this afternoon, we start off with some agitation on the teacher front as three teacher unions in the pre-tertiary education sector, namely the Ghana National Association of Teachers, National Graduate Teachers Association of Ghana, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, have all declared an indefinite strike effective today, November 4, 2022, in response to the appointment of Dr. Nkansah as Director General of the Ghana Education Service. According to the group, the appointment of Dr. Nkansah, who they describe as a banker, goes contrary to the collective agreement signed between teacher unions and the Ghana Education Service. NAT President Isaac Owusu has been addressing a news conference to announce the decision of the group.
From this background, that we made our reaction known on the dismissal of the Director General of the Ghana Education Service and subsequent appointment of a banker as an acting Director General, contrary to the substantive and procedural rules of our collective agreement, which was signed in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, it must be stated that the Director General's position is the preserve of educationists and has been occupied by educationists since its creation in the 1974 to date. Therefore, the appointment of a banker instead of educationists is a manifestation of lack of confidence in teachers and to manage their own affairs and disregard the establishment scheme of service and progression within the Ghana Education Service. The teacher unions did not only register their protest, but also found it unacceptable for a banker to be appointed as a Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Instead of educationists, at a time when many teachers who did the same courses and related ones were rejected by GES because it is not related to education. We stated that both the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service should apologize to teachers for accepting the very qualification they rejected when teachers presented them, contract extension. We stated our opposition to the said contract extension and thereby sounded notes of caution that we will vehemently and vigorously resist any attempt to bring Mr. Anthony Boateng back into the system, and that the consequences of any such attempt may be too dire to handle. We finally caution that should government fail to heed our call, leadership of the teacher unions will not be able to control the actions and inactions of their members, and the Ministry of Education and GES may have themselves to blame in the final analysis. We have been compelled, under the current circumstances, to publicly communicate to Ghanaians on our intention to go on strike, having reached the November 4th deadline we gave the government. Consequently, we have decided to embark on strike from today, Friday, 4th November 2022. By this, we are informing the general public that we are withdrawing all our services in all the pre-tertiary education institutions.
Well, so that's the demand by the teacher unions. Exactly what is government doing about the demands, and will Dr. Nkansah's appointment be reversed? Joining me via Zoom now is a spokesperson for the Education Ministry. Mr. Kwesi Kwasi is joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. So it's clear that, of course, you did not heed to the demands earlier when they were made. You're giving out an ultimatum of November 4. That was the timeline given by the teacher unions. Now they are acting in accordance to the earlier notice they served. What is the ministry intending to do to try and calm nerves or perhaps revoke the appointment of Dr. Nkansah? And you'd have to unmute for me so I can hear the points you're making, sir. If you can hear me, Mr. Kwaching, I was just asking about what the ministry is doing now, knowing that indeed the teachers are very much concerned about the appointment of Dr. Nkansah, and what do you intend to do to resolve the crisis?
Okay. All right. A very good afternoon to you. Are you able to repeat your question?
Yes, I was just asking what I mean, concretely, what you're going to do to resolve this crisis.
You are referring to the declared strike.
Precisely.
Okay. We've had a very long meeting with the leadership of the unions. What I can say to you and the public is that everybody should remain calm. We are very hopeful that we are going to get to the end of this. We are very optimistic that by the close of the meeting, we should find a common consensus or common ground, and hopefully we should see this whole impasse come to an end. Hopefully by the close of the day when the meeting is done.
Yeah, and what would that result in? Because the demand is key. It's quite straightforward, isn't it? The group says, revoke the appointment, we'll be back in the classrooms.
That's what I'm saying, that I am not going to prejudice the meeting that is ongoing. It is based on this same consensus that has called for this very important meeting. Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, they are mediating between the two parties. The Ministry of Education is heavily represented by the ministers themselves. We also have the union leadership all present. The meeting is ongoing. What I can say is that it is very hopeful, it's very assuring. The unions have been very collaborative. We are very much appreciative to them. And I can say that at the end of the tunnel, it looks very bright.
Yeah, bright for the ministry or for the teachers?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, we believe that the appointment is made by the president.
I mean, Kwesi, you're being diplomatic in this sense, isn't it? The future is bright. You were clear on that. Bright for who? The teachers or the ministry?
I obviously have to be. Especially when the meeting is ongoing, and I do not want to prejudice what they are saying. But of course, ultimately, our position was very clear. I mean, it's not something I'm gonna have to rehash or retreat. Our position was very clear. If we look at the appointment of the GES boss, obviously there is a framework that defines that. Our unions, the leadership knows better than myself. Of course, I mean, they did not like the appointment. Ultimately, the Ministry of Employment came in. We are speaking to the unions. We are speaking to the leadership. And I can assure you that our conversation or our engagement is far advanced. It is very possible that we'll be hearing very good news at the end of the meeting. Hopefully, I'll break the news to you, but it's very fruitful. There's been some long advanced conversation that we'll be having. And then the assurance we have is that the unions are very cooperating and very collaborative.
Some members of parliament have been writing about this. We'll bring some of their concerns up shortly, including your former boss, the former PR for the Ministry of Education, who's now serving on the Education Committee in Parliament. I'm talking about Vincent Assefuah. He's put up some concerns, even questioning the propriety of the appointment of Dr. Nkansah. Probably it's a good time to bring that up. But whilst we're at that, I also want to of course, get your thoughts on the issue that, first of all, the ministry is to blame for what's happening today. The fact that you did not act, knowing very well that by November 4, the concerns of the teachers would have gotten to the stage. But before you address that, here's the post by Vincent Assefuah, who's obviously MP for Tafo and now serving on the Education Committee. He says, and it comes under the broad umbrella of the teacher unions embarking on a strike over the dismissal of the GES boss. And I'm quoting here, when you have an ill-conceived, selfish, and baseless recommendation emanating from the Ministry of Education to the presidency to relieve an educationist at the helm of affairs and bring in an alien. And we're not too sure, but if we're to interpret this, it may be referring to Dr. Nkansah, to the industry. This is what happens. Our democracy is growing. As a member of the Education Committee in Parliament, the recommendation from the Ministry of Education to the presidency is not only untenable, but also unreasonable and backward. Very strong words there, signed by Echo Vincent Asifwa. I mean, this is someone you know very well. You've worked closely with him. It appears that you've not done a good job. You've not done a good job. You agree?
Echo is my friend. When he posted that, I'm sure I was the first person who called him, and I was very surprised that it came from him. If you look at the thrust of the argument that he's making, and for me, I believe that we should engage issues rather than being emotional and sentimental about it. First of all, his argument is largely based on the fact that Dr. Nkansah, who is the newly appointed Director General of Education, Ghana Education Service, is a non-educationist. I don't get the basis of the non-educationist, especially when the GES office is not going to teach, it's not a classroom, but he's going to manage an administrative office. Granted, without even admitting that we are to go by the whole point about education background. Eko became a spokesperson for a whole education ministry.
Just hold on. This is the head. I mean, just hold on for me. This is going to be the head of the Ghana Education Service. It goes beyond just the administrative structures. You agree that for someone to
will you allow me to land? You be fair. Be fair to me. Allow me to land. Right. When I land, I'm at least when I land, we can introduce something.
Yes, but I'm taking you on the point you're making. You were making the point. You were making the point that his job was going to be largely
I did not even land. I did not even land.
Right.
No, I did not even land.
Okay, go ahead.
So if I was to land, first of all, the point that I was making is that if you look at the Ghana Education Service, it is purely an administrative office, not necessarily a classroom. Beyond that, I am supporting that point with the fact that if you look at Dr. Nkansah, for instance, if you want to construe an educationist probably to be somebody who I've taught before, he has 14 years teaching experience, even more than that. Somebody who taught within the SHS or pre-tertiary space for 6 years, taught in the university for 8 years, have been a director of tertiary for almost 2 years, cumulatively 16 years. You are saying that such a person have no knowledge in education, and that you will have to be, be in the training college before you can be described as educationist or having an education. I mean, I don't get it. Again, this call is coming from somebody like my good brother Ekwasefua. Ekwasefua was not an educationist. Yes, he became the spokesperson of an education ministry. The former Minister for Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku Pempe, I believe he's been one of the fantastic ministers that this ministry have ever had. I mean, he was a medical doctor, but he performed so well. Ekwa himself today, as I speak to you, is a member of the Education Committee of Parliament. I mean, somebody who never had an education background today representing a whole constituent and the entire nation on the Education Committee of Parliament, making policies of education. Yet still he's able to function. So for me, it's really not about whether or not you have that detailed background in it. In any administrative office, especially if you are willing to work with the technical people, the other people who are there, I'm sure you should be able to succeed. In any event, Dr. Nkansah have taught for the past 14 years, have also been Director of Education, especially even if you want to juxtapose or couple that with his financial background. At a time, a crucial time where we have cash flow challenges, we hear issues about food shortages within the pre-tertiary space. Don't you think that it would have been an added advantage to have somebody with a bit of finance background in addition to his more teaching experience and having been in the classroom? I really don't get where this whole logic about he's not an educationist. Indeed, if we are to sustain this whole argument about whether or not an educationist should be the GES boss, why are they also opposing the extension of lawyer Anthony Boati, who also have probably all the experience that they are talking about? For a statement, I'll pardon him because I mean, even the same standard he sets, he himself betrays and defies those standards himself. But for us, what is most important is that we are engaging the teacher unions. we are very hopeful that we'll get them to at least come to the level that the ministry we are. And that I can assure you that by the close of the day, we should get something very substantial and very fruitful after the end of the meeting.
Expand the
That is our
conversation.
focus.
Right.
We do not feel that.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
sir.
we do. We do not feel that. We do not feel that by virtue of one person's employment, we should just watch for about 350,000 teachers not to work. In any event, if they refer to teachers and this whole doctrine about somebody being educated, what also happens to the non-teaching staff within the Ghana Education Service space? Will their concern not also be heard? What about TEWU? Will their concern not be heard? Today, the Education Committee of Parliament, the committee that Akwasifoa serves on. I mean, remember just about 3 days ago, they came to meet the Director General, Dr. Nkansah, congratulated him and even pledged to work with him. So for me, I find the ECO's comment not only as a betrayal to the Education Committee of Parliament, but also, I mean, kind of some disrespect to the President of the land who made this appointment. And I feel that it shouldn't be coming from a person who became a beneficiary of the whole system or the whole governmental arrangement, right. Especially when he himself did not have an education background, but became one of the successful PROs and also now serves on the education committee. I'm not sure the same standard we set for others, when it comes to us, we should not apply the same standards. It's not fair.
And Kwesi, I'll be coming back to you. Let's expand the conversation at least. Let's bring in some other stakeholders. Joining us now is Peter Pate, works with, of course, he's the Executive Director for IFEST, the Institute for Education Studies. Thank you for joining the conversation. So you've had the direct response coming through from the Education Ministry. Looking at the negotiations taking place right now, what kind of a push would you want to see from the Education Ministry, given that all of these 3 teacher unions are withdrawing their services? By Monday, the classrooms may be empty.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to Kwesi. I think that the ministry should tone down a little and find ways and means to reach out to the teacher unions. I know there's a meeting going on today, which I think is very unfortunate. I was thinking that this meeting should have been held earlier on than today, but fine. That is what they want to do. But ideally, I would have wished that this meeting would have happened maybe Monday, Tuesday, before the deadline that has been given. And that is why you have the letter in the media now. They asking that they are laying down their tools and they are going on a strike. If this meeting was held on Monday, Tuesday, thereabouts, I think we wouldn't be having this press release in the system. So maybe this time they should be proactive when such issues come up.
Okay, but now let's weigh the exact demands, the demands that are being raised right now. The fact that you have 3 unions, these are the key players in the pre-tertiary space, not especially, declaring strike over the appointment of just one individual. If you look at the scope of the activities, I'm not sure that directly speaking, NAT has anything to do with who becomes the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, and yet they believe that by having just this single individual at the helm of affairs, they're not working.
Yeah, I think, I know my brother Kwesi knows that the issues that necessitated or brought up all these are issues that might not be put in the public domain. And the teacher unions are very aware of the issues that have led to where we are now. And I think that is why they are taking the decision that they are taking. It should interest you, as you read their statement, and as Kwesi have also alluded to, that they are not even talking only about the DG, they're also talking about the return of another retired deputy director general.
That's also part of the demands they're making.
Yeah, you can read the letter.
Right.
They just So that tells you that there's something really going on within the education system that we cannot put out. But I think maybe at the appropriate time, everything will come out to the public domain. So these demands that are coming from the teacher unions are demands that have been boiled up for a considerable period of time. You remember somewhere in May, June, I first released a statement talking about the seemingly disagreement between the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service. So it's been something that has been piling up, and it has led to certain decisions that have been taken. And I think that the teacher unions, they understand the processes of appointing a DG. The ministry understands the processes of appointing a DG. If there's been any break of rule, I think they know what to do. If I wouldn't take it away from them, the fact that they also have a say in who leads their service, and that is something that you cannot take away from them.
Okay.
So they can push for whatever it is that they want to happen. But I'm saying that there are undertones that are leading to all these things, and it might be difficult, if not impossible, for.
Hello, Peter. Okay, we've lost Peter. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Solve
Peter.
this challenge.
Right, Peter.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you briefly. Okay, so let's get to it then. Just before I get back to Kwesi Kwarteng, let's deal with the possibility of a direct impact on the pre-tertiary space. What could that be?
It's going to be damning. Of course, you know that after COVID, we've been trying to rearrange our academic calendar in such a way that we will have some of the things that the students have lost. There will be a catch-up. Recent data seems to suggest that there has been a lot of learning loss in our basic schools. So it is going to be very damning. And that is why, for me, I think that the ministry should not have waited till today for that meeting to occur, because the teacher unions were clear that if by this day the appointment is not revoked, which I also think that the ministry is not ready to do, and that is a fact that's been demonstrated by the appointing authority. So they should have been proactive with the teacher unions and engaged them, because their position is known. The minister said publicly, has explained the background of the person they have appointed and all that.
Right.
So it's clear that they are not going to back on the decisions that they've taken.
Okay.
So the only move now is to get the teacher unions to understand and accept the person who is coming to head the education service, and then find ways and means to work with him. And I think this move should have started earlier on than today, because whether we like it or not, the letter is out. The meeting might happen, but we don't know by Monday. We don't know what is going to happen. Our case in schools are those who are going to suffer.
And in fact, this is running all the way up to the tertiary level. That's another conversation for another day. But just hold on for me. Let's bring back Kwesi Kwarteng at this point. And just before we hear from you, Mr. Kwarteng, I want us all to listen to the new GES boss. At least he's made some public statements as to what we should be expecting from him going forward. He says that he's asking all stakeholders to work with him in spite of the differences. So here's Dr. Nkansah just days ago before this latest development.
Thank the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for appointing me to act in this position as the Director General of GES. I would rather not have said much, as we have had all the discussions behind closed doors. I just want to let you know, as teachers, that I have come for you. The President of the land has already curated the vision for Ghana in terms of education. The President of the land, through the Ministry of Education, is currently pursuing lots of reforms, all of it coming together to making sure that we create the 21st century learner. In other words, to making sure that we create learners who are imbibed with the critical thinking, who are imbibed with all the skills that one needs to survive within the 21st century skills, within the 21st century. Beyond that, we have been saying, and here is not just saying, the vision of the President is that the transition rate between the secondary school and the tertiary space, where you have just about 33% of our youth progressing to the tertiary level, it's something that should be a thing of the past. We should not be happy with that. We should push and making sure that at least, if not for anything at all, about 70% of our learners move on to the tertiary level. So that is the charge that has been put before us. And I say us because you are all my colleagues, that we are coming to work together to ensuring that at the end of the day, we achieve this kind of outcome. But I also know that in achieving such an outcome, you would need to, as a matter of urgency, create enabling environment for the teacher. You would need, as a matter of urgency, create an enabling environment also for the Ghanaian child, the learner. So coming into office, I am actually clear in my mind that the teachers' welfare needs to be attended to.
Okay, so that's Dr. Eric Nkansah. Let me come back to you, Kwesi Kwarteng, as we wrap up, and then I'll get to Peter later on. Going forward, what's your expectation about the new acting boss, if indeed he survives the negotiations? Of course, days ago he was giving us a sense of what he intends to do, but I'm just wondering what the ministerial task is to Dr. Nkansah, particularly looking at what it is that the presidency issued about the immediate past GES director. You indicated that the services and skills were no longer required. Okay, that appears we've lost Kwesi Kwarteng there. But of course, Peter, let's wrap up with you. The point about the skills of Professor, the previous professor was in charge of the Ghana Education Service. The presidency indicating clearly that his skills were no longer needed at the GES, and now we have a new boss who's giving us a sense of where we may be going to. What's your, assessment of what he's told us and what we are to expect from him if indeed he survives the negotiations?
This is my first time of listening to this audio, this interview from the new acting DG. I think he's laid out his vision and focus for the office that he's going to occupy. I just wish him well and hope that in case he survives this agitation from the teacher unions, he'll be able to help build a better education system for our beloved country.
Anyway, Peter, we'll leave it here for now and await the outcome of the negotiations. We know that at the tertiary level as well, there's a lot of fire there. So busy weekend for the Education Minister, Dr. Educhum. Bye.